They were known, unofficially, mockingly, as the Lipstick Legion. Among the elite ranks of the Coalition strike forces, that name was meant to sting. They were a sniper unit composed entirely of women, an anomaly in a military institution still dogged by old biases despite its high-tech veneer and sprawling extraterrestrial mandates. Officially, they were Unit V9, designated for high-precision recon and long-range elimination. But in whispered barracks talk and officer lounges, they were still the butt of jokes, still the joke squad sent on missions no one cared to lead or follow. Sergeant Major Kayla Voss, the unit's commander, had heard it all before. Sneers about vanity, about fragility, about being more suited to holographic modeling than orbital combat. She didn't rise to the bait anymore. There was no time for pettiness when you were trusted only by the sisters at your side. Every mission they survived, every target they dropped clean, was a quiet reproof to the doubters. But no matter how clean the metrics, perception lingered. Voss surveyed the training field under the artificial dusk of Sagan Base's light canopy. Her second-in-command, Corporal Rena Cho, was calibrating her railscope, the matte black barrel of her Mantis X3 laid across the sandbag rest. Rena didn't speak unless the moment demanded it, but when she fired, she never missed. Her record was whispered even among those who dismissed the team, 32 confirmed at extreme distance, including 3 at orbital edge. Beside her was Lena Park, a chatterbox with lethal aim and a memory that stored battlefield telemetry like poetry. Across from her knelt Kes Alandro, the newest member, a former colonial marshal with a calm demeanor and nerves like carbon steel. And last, always last but never least, was Tiny Salazar, a name layered with irony given her towering frame and brutal efficiency with both gun and knife. Together, they made up the most precise elimination team in Earth's quadrant. But their deployment orders rarely reflected that. They weren't sent to the hot fronts. They weren't embedded in critical ops. Instead, they were assigned high-visibility recon, the kind of missions where failure wasn't fatal, just inconvenient. PR stunts in warzone shadows. Their current orders were no different. Sector Deltas, 11, a remote border fringe near the Harkessian fault line. Alien activity had been spotted in brief blips, nothing confirmed, nothing alarming. Intel rated it a soft probe, a minimal threat pass by. But Coalition Command wanted eyes on it. Just in case. Just in case was shorthand for busy work. Prep for drop in 10, Kayla said, her voice even as she pulled her helmet on. You all know the drill. Eyes up, scopes live, Lena replied, already stowing her datapad. We'll make it clean, Rena said softly, almost a whisper. Kes simply nodded, her fingers tightening gloves with meticulous control. Tiny hefted the gear pack, checked her blade sheaths, and cracked her knuckles with a grin. Their dropship, the Lancer 3, rattled as it pierced the planetary thermosphere. A small, unremarkable world, Delta 11 was the kind of place where silence screamed. They set down in a grove of needle-thin trees swaying in a dry wind, the air thick with ionized particles from the system's solar flares. Their camo suits shimmered subtly, adapting to the terrain's muted bronze and slate hues. They moved like ghosts through the brush, silent, practiced, unafraid. Every movement was muscle memory. Kayla took point, her HUD pulsing with topographic overlays and biosign scans. The local fauna was quiet. No large signatures. No energy emissions. They were supposed to observe an alien relay tower recently spotted by a passing drone. Standard architecture, tri-spired, energy-based, no known heat signature. When they reached it, though, what they found wasn't a tower. It was a hatch. Embedded into the rock face, so tightly sealed its outline was only visible under spectral scan, the hatch pulsed with a subsonic frequency that set Rena's teeth on edge. That's not a relay, she murmured. That's an access point. A base. Kes asked, already sliding to the left for a better angle. Or a staging ground, Kayla said. This was supposed to be a passive scan. That hatch is power active. They're here. The alien force known only as the Virek had been testing human perimeters for the better part of 3 years, always probing, never committing. Humanity had assumed the Virek were cautious, curious, or both. A slow chess player. This, though, suggested something else. This was a bunker. A beachhead. Kayla activated the encrypted uplink and sent the images to command. Her transmission went through but was met with the expected reply. Observation noted. Continue recon. No further action authorized. No further action. No reinforcements. No evacuation protocol. Kayla stared at the screen for a long moment before clicking off the comm. We stay in close orbit. No contact. Full scan. Rena, I want a perimeter. Any sign of patrols or movement. Rena's scope clicked once, twice. Then silence. Movement, East Ridge, she said after a breath. Not Virek. Human. Exosuit, unmarked. Mercs. Tiny asked. Spooks, Kayla muttered. Private contractors or Black Flag operatives. Maybe ours, maybe not. This site's not a random alien choice. Within 10 minutes, they counted 7 more human operatives, all clearly trying to avoid surveillance. Not a single coalition insignia among them. I thought this was low threat, Lena said, her voice edged with tension. Kayla narrowed her eyes. Either Command is lying to us, or they don't know their own sectors anymore. Neither option is great, Kess replied. They tracked the team to a narrow chasm behind the hatch, where human hands interfaced with alien tech. Portable quantum welders. Remote decryptors. Someone was trying to open that door. Kayla, Rena whispered, adjusting her scope. They're inside. Sure enough, a section of the rock face shimmered and retracted. The human team descended out of view, vanishing into the structure. Do we go in? Tiny asked. No, Kayla said. We mark it. We record it. We get back to the Lancer. But as they turned to move, Rena's hand shot up. Drone. High altitude. Alien. They dropped into defensive crouches just as a Virek survey drone zipped overhead, its silent grav engine humming with eerie precision. It paused over the chasm, then began descending. Kayla cursed under her breath. We have a conflict scenario. The drone sent out pulses of violet light, scanning the area. If it detected the human team inside the hatch, there would be blood. Let it go, Kayla said. We don't compromise our position. But the moment of restraint passed too slowly. The drone fired, no weapons, just a flare of ultraviolet light. A beacon. A signal. Something was coming. From the far cliffs, Virek strikeforms emerged, bipedal, sinewy, moving like shadows sharpened into blades. Kayla counted at least a dozen. Pack up. Now. They moved. Efficient. Silent. But not fast enough. The ridge ahead erupted in plasma fire. A second team, different armor, bulkier weapons, had arrived, and they weren't coalition. One of the snipers dropped to a prone position and fired without hesitation. A Virek crumpled mid-leap, green ichor spattering the rocks. Guess our friends don't like being interrupted, Lena muttered. As the firefight raged below, the women snipers team skirted the perimeter, tagging enemy locations, marking the kill zones. Their data could save hundreds, if anyone cared to believe them. Back at the extraction point, their Lancer was gone. Smoke trailed in the sky. Kayla scanned the horizon. Emergency evac protocols are not responding. Command pulled us, Rena said, fury in her voice. They're letting this play out. Or trying to bury it, Kess added. Kayla stared out across the canyon where human and alien forces now exchanged lethal greetings. This wasn't a recon zone. This was the beginning of something larger. And they were the only ones who knew. We hold position here, she said. Transmit everything. If they won't believe us, we'll show them. They wanted a joke. Let's be the punchline they choke on. Tiny chuckled darkly. About damn time. As the transmission beamed through encrypted channels, flagged urgent priority, Kayla watched the ridgeline burn. Somewhere out there, the Virek were unfolding their strategy. Somewhere closer, humans danced complicity into the flame. The women snipers team might have been underestimated. They might have been ignored. But they were not blind. And they were not done. The shadows no longer hid them. They were the shadows now, armed, watching, and waiting to strike. The sky turned a deep violet as the second moon rose over Delta 11, casting long shadows over the war no one had planned to admit. The snipers waited, breath steady, rifles trained, not for permission, but for opportunity. And opportunity was coming fast. The wind across Delta 11 carried a sharp, metallic scent now, burnt ozone, scorched silicon, and something distinctly biological. The remains of the downed Lancer still smoked a few clicks south, nothing left but the jagged undercarriage and the shredded wings curling like scorched leaves. Kayla Voss crouched beneath a broken arch of petrified wood, her scope trained on the distant hatch embedded in the canyon wall. In her earpiece, the transmission loop repeated for the 5th time, command acknowledging receipt of data, then silence. No new orders. No response. The message was clear without being spoken: you're on your own. The team had shifted into survival mode, establishing a perimeter, setting sensors, rechecking ammunition counts like a ritual. They were no longer on a recon op. They were behind enemy lines without support, with 2 hostile forces converging on a site that shouldn't have existed. Kayla could feel the weight of every breath her team took, a synchrony forged by repetition, necessity, and unspoken trust. "We're not extracting," Kes said as she lowered her drone remote, eyes flicking to Kayla. No rescue craft within 10 systems. No response drones inbound. "We're cut off." "We were never meant to make it back," Rena murmured. She was laid out beside her sniper blind, her tone devoid of emotion. "This whole sector's dark. The blackout isn't a glitch. It's intentional." "Means they either want this buried," Lena said, pacing softly, "or someone high up is working off a different playbook." Kayla didn't reply. The theory echoed in her mind like a bullet casing clattering on stone. She didn't know if Command had sold them out, or if the depth of the threat had finally forced their hand into silence. But she did know one thing: they were staying. Intel this volatile couldn't disappear. Not if it meant exposing a hidden war within humanity's own reach. They moved at night, using the folds of the terrain and the skeletal outcrops for cover. Tiny carried the heaviest gear with tireless precision, while Lena adjusted microdrones to sweep the surrounding terrain. The hatch had closed after the firefight, but the Vyrek hadn't left. Nor had the unidentified human squad. Infrared scans showed movement, subterranean heat signatures clustered and shifting in slow, deliberate patterns. Something was being activated below. From a vantage on the upper cliffs, Kayla studied the faint shimmer of atmospheric distortion field generators, masking tech not unlike their own but vastly more refined. The Vyrek were hiding something larger than a base. Possibly a ship. Possibly worse. "We need to get inside," Kayla said quietly over comms. Kes glanced up from her panel. "You want to breach?" "No," Kayla answered. "We'll use the back door. The one they opened. You saw how it closed behind them." "We don't have their codes," Rena reminded her. Kayla pulled a wafer-thin data drive from her pack. "We don't. But they did. And they're not all alive anymore." The remnants of the human squad lay scattered along the outer ridge. They'd been slaughtered in moments. Torn, not vaporized. Not Vyrek plasma fire. It had been blades, clean, silent, efficient. Kayla's bet was internal sabotage. A purge. Whatever they'd tried to uncover, someone hadn't wanted them reporting back either. "Find a body," Kayla said. "Search for interface tools, drives, implants, anything that gives us an access point." They worked silently in the dark. Rena covered the team from above, her rifle sight sweeping in careful arcs. Kes was the one to find it, a neural tap buried behind the left ear of a dead operative. She extracted it cleanly, noting the serial code and encryption matrix. Lena plugged it into her handheld. "High-level biotech. Military grade," she muttered. Whoever these guys were, they weren't freelancers. "Then who?" Tiny asked. Lena didn't answer. Her brows furrowed as her fingers danced across the input screen. "This tap has clearance tied to Coalition Deep Research. Level 9. Which doesn't exist." The words dropped like stones. Kayla leaned closer. "Extract everything." Within minutes, they had a rudimentary access string. Kess ran a decryption sim and scrubbed out signature pingbacks. It would be crude, but it would get them through a door. They waited until the twin moons aligned again, casting the narrow gorge into total shadow, and moved. The rock face shimmered faintly under Kayla's fingers as she triggered the access code. The hatch made no sound. Just a shift in temperature. Then it opened. The corridor beyond was cold, not in temperature but in sensation. Clinical. Carved in alien geometry that bent light subtly wrong. Their footsteps echoed too long. The walls pulsed faintly as if aware. Every 10 meters, tiny glyphs flickered, unreadable yet rhythmic, like a heartbeat written in symbols. No bodies. No signs of struggle. Then, a sound, soft, like breathing. The kind that didn't come from any human throat. Kayla raised a fist, halting them. They listened. Nothing. Further in, they found the remnants of human tech. Cases marked with black triangles. Disassembled scanners. One had a shattered screen displaying a rendered sphere, orbital coordinates. A deep space object. Lena snapped a photo and uploaded it to local memory. Whatever they were looking for, she said, it's not just here. This is a terminal node. Kayla nodded. This facility's connected to a wider network. The breathing sound returned, closer now. Tiny turned, rifle raised. Left corridor. A ripple in the air. A shimmer. Then movement. The Virek weren't visible until they were almost within striking distance. They moved with fluid grace, like something designed to kill in silence. Kayla fired first, a precise burst to the nearest shape's center mass. It dropped, twitching. Kess laid down covering fire as the team retreated to fallback position Delta 5. Rena's voice cut through comms. 3 more incoming from above. Ceiling vents. Flash M, Kayla ordered. Lena tossed a strobe grenade. The corridor exploded in refracted light, disrupting the Virek's cloaking field. For an instant, the enemy was visible. Tall, biomechanical, faces covered in segmented armor with no eyes, no mouth. Just smooth, expressionless masks. Kayla's team dropped all 5 before the light faded. Breathing hard, Kayla reviewed the scan data. They weren't defending the hatch, she said. They were waiting. For us, Kess finished. Why? Tiny asked, wiping alien fluid from her blade. Lena exhaled. Because the other team opened the door. But we're the ones still walking. They fell back to a hidden alcove within the structure, possibly a maintenance node or a dead zone in the energy lattice. Lena began piecing together the partial files from the neural tap. The data confirmed their suspicions. The Virek facility was a communications relay. Not to their own kind, but to human space. Messages had been sent, not in alien tongue, but in encrypted coalition protocol. They've been talking to someone inside our command structure, Kayla said. Rena sat back, her face pale in the green glow of the console. We're looking at full-blown infiltration. Sabotage at the highest levels. And we're the only ones who know, Kayla added. The silence that followed wasn't despair. It was resolve crystallizing. They couldn't leave, not yet. They had to sever the link, collapse the tunnel, wipe the station clean. If they couldn't get out with the data, they'd make sure no one else got in. Kayla opened her comms, rerouting signal to their off-grid satellite drop capsule. It was a fail-safe, one they were never meant to use. Message draft complete, she said. Compressed data packet will reach Coalition Beacon in 20 hours, assuming no intercept. Once we send this, we start demolition. Then we buy ourselves 20 hours, Kess said. Outside, the storm had begun. Virek forms poured through the corridors, no longer sneaking, no longer waiting. They knew. The trap had snapped shut. The women took their positions, rifles ready, explosives primed. Kayla looked at her team, worn, bloodied, unbroken. They called us a joke, she said quietly. Let's give them a punchline they'll never forget. The Virek charged. And the women, already in the crosshairs, fired first. The corridors screamed with the percussion of gunfire, the war song of precision weaponry echoing off the unnatural walls. Kayla's team had fallen into rhythm, not of panic, but of purpose. An orchestrated pattern of strike and shift, suppress and slide, all calculated with sniper precision even in close quarters. They were no longer shadows. They were the storm that hunted shadows. Rena's voice came cool over comms. Right flank breached. 3 down. Still counting. Kayla pivoted behind a column of alien metal, raising her coil rifle. Her shot lanced through the gloom, severing a Vyrek mid-leap. It dropped twitching, limbs spasming like a puppet with cut strings. She didn't wait to confirm. Motion was survival. Stagnation was death. "We'll run out of charge before we run out of them," Tiny muttered, reloading with mechanical speed. His shoulder plating bore deep scars from an earlier blow, his left bicep oozing plasma-stained blood. "And they're adapting." "They always adapt," Kes said, recalibrating her drone. "So we force them to adapt to a losing hand." Kayla turned to Lena, whose console bathed her in blue light. "What do we know about the comms relay node?" "It's central," Lena said, her fingers dancing across holographic keys. "Submerged in reinforced armor, likely integrated with the architecture. You don't destroy it without taking the whole structure down." "We can't take the whole structure down," Tiny said. "Not without a fusion charge. And we've got maybe 2 microbursts left." Kayla narrowed her eyes. "Then we pull them toward it. Let them dig their own grave." The plan wasn't elegant, but it was brutal. It had to be. Kes seeded proximity mines down the corridors with deliberate precision, calibrating for Vyrek heat signatures. Rena climbed back to the upper tiers, rifle reassembled for long-range suppression. Lena and Tiny jury-rigged an electromagnetic pulse charge capable of cooking localized electronics, enough to disrupt the relay's transmission long enough to corrupt any data in transit. If it didn't blow them up first. Kayla positioned herself at the heart of the trap, near the relay chamber's outer threshold. It pulsed like a living organ, dark crystal embedded with streaming code. Alien glyphs shimmered across its surface, synchronizing with the heartbeat Kayla now felt in her chest. She'd seen machines mimic biology before, but never this intimately. "They're coming," Rena warned. "Fast. Climbing walls. Ceiling. They're no longer hiding." The corridor ahead bloomed with movement, Vyrek gliding across surfaces like serpents in a feeding frenzy. Kayla breathed once. Steady. Let them. The mines flared, plasma searing through shadow. Screeches echoed as limbs were blown apart, as cloaking fields burst into flame. The snipers fired not randomly, but rhythmically, every shot a punctuation mark in the chaos. One Vyrek broke through, its mask dripping with heatburn, claws spinning toward Kayla. She sidestepped, dropped, and drove her blade upward into its throat. It didn't die gracefully. Behind her, Tiny threw the last of their explosives onto the support beams, setting them to remote detonation. 50 seconds. Let's hope your plan works. Kayla's voice was low, almost a whisper. It has to. The remaining team pulled back to the relay's chamber, the ancient structure now thrumming with alien awareness. Lights flickered across its surface, and Lena muttered, "It knows we're here. It's communicating with something outside this planet." "We're cutting the line," Kayla said. She raised her rifle and fired directly into the glyph cluster. The coil round shattered part of the crystalline array. Sparks burst, lines of code stuttering. Lena triggered the pulse. The room surged with blinding white. Everything went still. When vision returned, the relay's lights had gone dark. But so had half of their HUDs. Comms scrambled. Kayla's ear filled with static. "System reboot underway," Kes reported, coughing. "But they're disoriented too. Some kind of neural feedback. Their advantage is gone." But it didn't mean they were safe. The structure trembled beneath their feet, an earthquake born of alien fury. From the upper chamber, Rena's voice crackled, "New signature. Big one. Central shaft. You need to see this." Kayla sprinted, feet hammering against slick floor. When she reached the overlook, she saw it. The Vyrek had unleashed something else. It rose from the depths of the complex, A massive serpentine construct with a head shaped like a crown of knives. Not cloaked. Not hidden. Its form pulsed with shifting metal and synthetic tissue, as though engineered from stolen DNA and alloyed rage. Kayla understood in a single flash. They weren't the only ones who'd been underestimated. Primary Guardian Unit, Lena whispered. Probably dormant until the relay breach. We just woke the real threat. It shrieked, no sound, just a psychic wave that made Kayla stagger. Her team gritted their teeth, endured. Tiny spat blood and grinned. Well, hell of a last act. Kayla turned to him. Not yet. She activated the manual override on the detonation system. The explosives laced into the structure were designed for structural collapse, not combat. But if timed correctly, they could redirect the Guardian's trajectory, collapse the tunnels on top of it before it reached open ground. Rena, Kayla said, I need eyes. Can you still see the tunnel apex? Yeah, came the reply, ragged but steady. Barely. Guide me. We lure it into the dead zone, then drop the roof. You're gonna have to run like hell. Kayla didn't flinch. I'm counting on it. She ran. Down the rampart, past shattered crystal and smoking corpses. Her presence drew the Guardian like a beacon. It surged, screeching, tail smashing through walls as it followed. Kayla could feel its hunger, its rage, like fingers clawing at her spine. Almost there, Rena said. Now. Kayla dove through the last arch as the tunnel groaned. She slapped the detonator. The world collapsed. Stone, steel, bone, and darkness slammed together in a roar of finality. Dust engulfed the corridor. The Guardian's shriek cut short mid-pitch. Then, silence. When it cleared, Kayla coughed, vision swimming. She was pinned by rubble, but alive. Tiny and Lena dragged her free, coughing and covered in ash. Kess limped forward, cradling her scorched drone casing. Rena dropped from above, her rifle across her back. They stood together at the ruin's edge, the relay buried, the Guardian entombed. The Vyrek presence severed. Their message lost to the void. Kayla looked up at the stars, now exposed through the cracked ceiling. We've bought time, she said. Enough, maybe. Still no pickup signal, Lena said quietly. Kayla nodded. Then we keep moving. We survive long enough to tell this story ourselves. The silence that followed was not defeat. It was endurance made manifest. Their mission wasn't over. The dawn over Delta 11 broke slowly, casting fractured light across the ruined valley. Red beams lanced through dust that refused to settle, making the landscape look like something half-remembered from a dream, if dreams bled oil and static and the copper scent of war. The relay complex was silent beneath the rock, entombed by the sniper team's final gambit. And somewhere deep below, the Guardian's corpse lay buried under tons of shattered alloy and melted circuits. The Vyrek had not stirred again. Kayla Voss adjusted the strap of her field pack, pain radiating through her ribs with each movement. 2 cracked, maybe 3. Her left eye still throbbed from the feedback pulse. But she was alive. They all were. And more importantly, they'd won. Not a pretty victory, not one that would be honored in parades or hollow medals, but a victory forged in truth and fire. The team had moved steadily northeast, keeping low, following the carved ravines and abandoned Vyrek supply trails. The atmospheric interference was weakening. The blackout was no longer total. Lena managed to boost their transmitter using salvaged components, and on the 4th night, the emergency beacon finally broke through. Automated relay caught it, Lena confirmed, examining the small blinking panel. Piggybacked the signal to Coalition Outer Defense Grid. Message is confirmed delivered. Someone out there heard us. Tiny grunted. Question is, what'll they do about it? Kayla didn't answer immediately. Her gaze swept the horizon where the sky bruised into darkness. That depends on who hears it first. The truth's out now. They can bury it again, but they can't say we didn't try. The next morning brought the ship. At first, it was a shimmer, too low for orbit, too silent for any standard Coalition transport. Then it resolved into form, a sleek obsidian arrow that sliced through the haze, humming with a frequency Kayla's bones could feel. It was human-built, yes, but augmented. Modified. Something developed in secrecy far from the oversight of Earth Command. Rena spotted the emblem before it fully landed. Black Crown. Kayla exhaled sharply. Ghost Division. Tiny spat in the dust. Didn't know they were real. They weren't, Kess said. Not officially. The ramp opened without fanfare. From the ship's belly emerged a tall man, mid-40s, sharp features and sharper eyes. His uniform bore no name, no rank, just the black crown sigil etched in obsidian thread on his shoulder. He walked toward them without hesitation, flanked by 2 guards in mirror visors. "I'm here for the data," he said simply, his voice clipped, efficient. Kayla stepped forward. "You got the beacon?" "Yes." "You've exposed a relay facility long denied by Coalition records. You've destroyed a Virek Guardian unit believed theoretical. And you've presented evidence of internal collusion that, if verified, destabilizes half of Earth's diplomatic structure." He paused, eyes sweeping over the battered team. "You weren't supposed to survive." "That's becoming a pattern," Kayla said. He held out a gloved hand. "The data module." Kayla hesitated. The drive, now fused into her armor rig, was encrypted, coded with biometric lock and failsafes. Giving it up meant handing over the only proof of what they'd seen and done. "What happens next?" she asked. "That's above your clearance. You're standing in front of 6 soldiers who buried a war crime. You want this data, you give us something better than silence." He didn't blink. "Your team will be reassigned to Black Crown oversight. You'll be debriefed and removed from standard personnel rosters. You'll cease to exist in official channels. In return, your story will be preserved." Quietly, carefully, Lena scoffed. "That's just a polite way of saying, disappear." Kayla locked eyes with the man. "If you bury this, they'll do it again. Somewhere else. To someone else. We can't be ghosts." "Neither can the truth," he said evenly. "It survives only when contained, not when weaponized." Kess stepped forward. "We're not here to be martyrs. But we didn't crawl out of that hell just to let it happen again. If we vanish, someone else writes the ending. And you weren't there." Silence stretched. The man considered them for a long time. Then, he nodded once. "Very well. I'll authorize a controlled leak. Select intel will be funneled to trusted Coalition observers. A narrative will be crafted, half truth, half necessity. You will be listed as Kia. But your legacy will live in whispers." "Not good enough," Kayla said, tone like steel. "We don't want whispers. We want acknowledgement." He studied her again, this woman covered in dust and scars, whose eyes held no fear left to lose. "Then pick your condition." Kayla didn't hesitate. "Public exoneration of our unit. Reinstatement of our record. Tactical footage verified and archived under accessible military history. We don't need a ceremony. We don't need the truth to be polished. Just let it stand." "Done," he said. "On my word." Kayla handed over the drive. The ship took them in, sterilized and cold. Medical bots cleaned wounds, but asked no questions. No names were spoken during transit. The atmosphere inside felt like a morgue for secrets, but Kayla stayed centered. She watched her team reassemble piece by piece, not with words, but in glances, nods, small acts of returned trust. They had passed through fire together, and no agency, no system, no hidden branch of command could erase that. When they landed at Outpost Theta 9, a backwater base on the edge of Coalition space, there were no welcoming banners. No applause. Just a low-ranking officer with trembling hands holding a datapad. "You're cleared," he stammered, clearly unprepared for who stood before him. "Records have been adjusted. Your files no longer read MIA. Coalition Command acknowledges successful independent action during Blackout Event Delta 11. You've all been promoted posthumously." Kayla arched a brow. Posthumously. That's what the file says. But you're here. So, congratulations. They left the base the same way they entered it. Quietly. But the story didn't stay quiet for long. A month later, a classified file leaked across civilian networks. Footage of the Vyrek relay, grainy sniper cam of the Guardian emerging, audio logs of Kayla's final transmission before the blackout. It spread like wildfire, though none could trace the source. The coalition blamed hackers. Command claimed disinformation. But the public knew better. And then the name appeared, VOS unit. All women. All dismissed. All declared dead. But the footage said otherwise. Suddenly, Kayla and her team became something else. Not just soldiers, but symbols. The snipers who were laughed at, dismissed, disregarded. Who outmaneuvered an alien threat and lived to tell the story in bullets and buried truths. Who showed the galaxy that underestimating humanity's quietest warriors was a fatal mistake. The Vyrek did not return to Delta 11. The relay remained dark. Other relays, long dormant, long denied, were discovered and shut down. Quiet arrests followed. Resignations swept through the highest levels of coalition command. No official explanation was ever given. But those who watched knew the truth. The tide had turned. Kayla Voss stood once more on Earth's surface months later, unnoticed in the crowd. Her face had changed. Her file had been deleted. But her eyes hadn't lost their fire. She watched a younger squad enter the orbital lift station. 5 new recruits, laughing, weapons polished, unaware. Among them, a young woman turned, catching Kayla's gaze for a moment. She didn't know who Kayla was. But she saluted anyway. Kayla nodded. Rena appeared beside her, unceremoniously popping a stick of gum. They'll be fine. They'll have to be, Kayla said. We've given them the space. And the legend. They turned from the station, melting back into the crowd. They weren't ghosts. Not anymore. They were the trigger pull that started the reckoning. And the world finally was listening.